Picture it with me. You're driving down Archer Avenue late at night, just outside of Chicago. Windows down, cool air brushing your face. Your favorite song hums from the radio. Suddenly, you see her. A young woman, walking along the side of the road, not dressed for the chill. You offer her a lift, maybe your jacket. She's stunning. Piercing blue eyes, blonde hair. You try to strike up a conversation, but she's eerily quiet, barely says a word, just gives you an address and asks you to take her home. Then she unexpectedly tells you to stop. You pull over, and you're in front of a cemetery. She steps out, walks toward the wrought iron gates, looks back, and tells you can't follow, and disappears, just like that. Chances are, you just met Mary. Resurrection Mary, one of Chicago's most famous ghost stories. Some say if you return to the cemetery after giving her your jacket, you'll find it folded neatly on her tombstone. Tonight, we'll explore where this legend came from, who Mary might have been, and why the Vanishing Hitchhiker keeps appearing across time and cultures. Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of They're Still Here. I'm David,
And I'm Jesse.
and we are your guides on adventures through the legendary and the creepy. We'll dive into stories and the history behind them. Today, we're diving into the Vanishing Hitchhiker phenomenon. Strap in, it's going to be a wild ride.
Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you saw someone walking alone on a dark highway?
And that is the question at the heart of these stories. Now, real quick, I'm going to go over before we start a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, thank you for tuning in with us to They're Still Here. This is our first episode. And don't forget, we are releasing an episode a day until our big finale on Halloween night. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and join our Discord to stay up to date and to see what the new episode is going to be. We can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions and what you want to hear next. And without further ado, let's get into the Vanishing Hitchhiker. Across history, people have reported spirits appearing on the side of the road, hitching a ride, and disappearing unexpectedly. They're called vanishing hitchhikers, ghostly hitchhikers, disappearing hitchhikers, phantom hitchhikers. I'm going to stick with vanishing just because it flows better, and I personally like
Short, sweet, and spooky. I like it.
it. Yeah, exactly. Now, here's the pattern. You pick someone up while driving. At some point, they vanish without a trace. Sometimes they even take your jacket and leave it for you, only to discover it on their tombstone, nicely folded. Other times, there's nothing but a wet seat where they were sitting, as in the case with the Lady of White Rock Lake. Sometimes they direct you to an address, only to reveal they've been dead for years. The earliest legend is traced back to 1602 in Sweden by, I believe, and forgive me, I do not speak Swedish, but it is Joan Petri Klint. Sorry to anybody listening from Sweden if I butchered that, but we're going to try it. Tonight, we'll cover three famous stories. The first being the Joan Petri Klint from Sweden in 1602. We're going to cover the Lady of White Rock Lake in Dallas, Texas. And we're going to cover, obviously, as you heard in the cold open, Resurrection Mary in Chicago, Illinois.
And we'll sprinkle in folklore classification and historical context along the way.
Heck yeah, we will. Now, Jesse, do you know anything about any of these legends?
Honestly, it just hearsay is mostly what I've listened to. Old ghost stories from different locations to, I mean, I've heard of everything from similar Vanishing Hitchhiker stories kind of tied in with the covered bridge stories. So it's just like, I don't know, I guess every township or something like that or anything around that always has their own little thing.
Right.
But
Yeah,
you
and
never know.
yeah, and it's really all over the world. Like, I mean, just for instance, you have Sweden in 1602. There's um, deity stories in Hawaii that use the idea of the vanishing hitchhiker, right? And then you also have something that kind of comes in with like crisis apparitions kind of thing. It's more like an omen, right? Like I forget what the show was, but I was watching. Oh, it was the show Evil on Netflix. I was watching that, and they were talking about investigating an angel that pulled people out of a collapsing building during the collapse, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of another thing that gets kind of tied in. It's the idea of the premonition or the omens, and it's kind of a cool little twist uh, on just the vanishing hitchhiker.
Right. And I mean, like I said, there's always everything from folklore, there's been stuff everything from evil to supernatural. They've had different things from that. And then the fascinating thing is the Vanishing Hitchhiker story has been from, like I said, there have been stories of covered bridges that people have been picked up on, to actual bridges, to cemeteries, to, I mean, the list goes on, which is crazy. Um, but I think when it comes down to Mary, that's the one that I've heard of. I've honestly never heard of the other two, so
Yeah,
this will be fascinating for me to learn.
yeah, and I don't have a whole lot of information on the deity in Hawaii. I believe is where it's at, but we might do a whole nother episode just on that one because it's such a storied history, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then yeah, Supernatural. You brought that up. Supernatural's first episode actually was a
deals with the
vanishing
vanishing
hitchhiker.
hitchhiker.
Yeah, and it
Actually, I think it
also
was more along the lines of a woman in white, but it's pretty
well,
close.
it combines the two, right? And
Yeah, it does.
actually, the interesting thing is it's less of a woman in white and more of a woman in black.
Yeah,
So
very true.
there are two different things for those that don't know. You have the woman in white, which is usually good, and then you have the woman in black, which I am going to butcher this again. Again, my main language is English, so I apologize to any of our Spanish speakers out there. But like the movie The Curse of La Llorona
Mm,
um, is about a woman in black,
yeah, that's right.
and so they're usually a little bit more negative. But then you also have lesser known legends of women in red, which are kind of
Yeah,
cool.
I've heard of them, but
Yeah,
not much. But I have heard of it.
yeah, and it's a lot of fun to really dive into these things. And for anybody listening, this is our first episode, so we might get off topic a little bit, but it's going to be fun no matter what we do. And so the first thing I think that we should start with, I think we should start talking a little bit about the folklore classification systems. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's get started on that one. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive into some of the folklore classification systems that have come up throughout the years, right? So we're
Hmm.
going to start with the researchers Richard Beardsley and Rosalie Hankey, who surveyed 79 vanishing hitchhiker accounts in the 40s, and they divided them into four types.
Give me the short version, please.
All right, the short version. So you have type A, B, C, and D, right? You have type A, which is the hitchhiker gives an address and driver learns that they gave a lift to a ghost. Type
Yeah.
B is the hitchhiker is an old woman who predicts disaster. Type C is a girl that's met at a dance or entertainment venue and leaves a token on her grave, much like Resurrection Mary from the cold open.
I was about to say, yeah, with the jacket.
Yeah. And type D is a hitchhiker who is identified as a local divinity.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. And I think I brought that up a little bit earlier talking about in
Yes.
Hawaii. Now, so the interesting thing about the Beardsley and Hankey surveys, right, is let's see here. One thing that they brought up that was particularly interesting to note about was in Kingston, New York in 1941, in which the vanishing hitchhiker was identified as Mother Cabrini, which that's Frances Xavier Cabrini, who was the founder of the local Sacred Heart Orphanage, who ended up being beatified for her work. Now, Jesse, do you know what beatified is? Do you know what beatification is?
Actually, no, I do not.
Okay, so beatification is something that happens in the Catholic Church. It's a recognition of a deceased person's entrance into heaven and capacity to intercede on behalf of individuals who pray in their name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so Mother Cabrini was said to be beatified. Right? Now, the interesting thing about this is that case specifically, Beardsley and Hankey thought was a kind of a combination of a type B and a type D, right?
Yeah.
Because basically, what she would do is she would let people know if something was going to happen, but then they figured out who she was. And so it kind of became a combination of the two, the local divinity and the old woman who predicts disaster, right?
Yes.
Now, in their sample, it contained 47 young female apparitions, 14 old lady apparitions, and 14 more of an intermediate sort is the only information that I can find on that. Sadly, I don't have access to the actual papers that they wrote on this stuff. But I would love to try to get a hold of it. So if anybody happens to know where to find it, please feel free to reach out, join our Discord or something, and send it to us. That would be awesome. And they also took responses from 16 different states in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's very prevalent in the U.S. Uh, and then, um, did you have any thoughts or anything like that on any of that information before we move on?
No, I'm just fascinated about how most of the cases, like you said, are found in the States compared to anywhere else.
Well, they're found all over.
Well, probably classified
Right?
in the States
So,
more
well,
than or documented.
yeah, well, you figure, a lot of the people that have been documenting and have been classifying, they've been from the States, right?
Yeah.
Now, the next one is really interesting. So, Ernest W. Boffman, he wrote a type and motif index of folk tales of England and North America in 1966, right? Now, the interesting thing about that is he took into account both England and the US. So he's finally kind of branching out more than what Beardsley and Hankey did, right?
Yeah.
And he defines the vanishing hitchhiker. The basic vanishing hitchhiker is, the ghost of a young woman who asks for a ride in an automobile disappears from a closed car without the driver's knowledge after giving him an address to which she wishes to be taken. The driver asks person at the address about the rider, finds out she's been dead for some time. Often, the driver finds that the ghost has made similar attempts to return, usually on the anniversary of death in an automobile accident. Often, too, the ghost leaves some item such as a scarf or traveling bag in the car. So that's how Boffman talks about it.
That's fascinating.
It is. And it really fits into the Resurrection Mary story at the beginning, or even the Lady of White Rock Lake. Because when you give the Lady of White Rock Lake a ride, your seat's wet. Because it's said that she's a young woman who drowned in the lake. And she's just trying to get home. Now, the motif from Ernest Boffman it's listed as E332.3.3.1. Now, I'm going to have a link in our show notes so you can actually see the full text of this motif, right? Because we actually have that. Now,
yeah,
it's lettered from A to H through J. So A is for vanishing hitchhikers who reappear on anniversaries. B is for vanishing hitchhikers who leave items in vehicles unless the item is in a pool of water, in which case it is C. I don't know why he had to separate. I guess it's just because, kind of like the legend of Lady of White Rock Lake, the only thing that she leaves behind is a puddle of water, right? So I guess that would kind of go into its own thing. D is for accounts of sinister old ladies who prophesy disasters. E contains accounts of phantoms who are apparently sufficiently solid to engage in activities such as eating or drinking during their journey. F is for phantom parents who want to be taken to the sickbed of their dying son. G is for hitchhikers simply requesting lift home. And H through J are a category reserved exclusively for vanishing nuns, a surprisingly common variant, who some have of whom foretell the future.
Huh.
So nuns
Honestly,
apparently,
that's a new one to me.
Yeah, apparently nuns can tell the future if they're dead. I guess. I don't know how else to talk about that one. Like, that's just the fact that it got its own, that's what, 3 different subcategories? H-I-J. Yeah, that's 3 different subcategories just for nuns. Now I feel like we need to do an episode just on vanishing nuns.
Almost.
That would be kind of cool. And then... Okay, so the legend of St. Christopher is actually said to be one of the, kind of a vanishing hitchhiker thing, apparently. Now, I'm not entirely sure about that legend itself.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. I just pulled this up so we can look at this as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Legends about the life and death. It appeared in Greece in the 6th century. Ooh. And then gave one version, but the most popular came from the Golden Legend in the 13th century. He was Canaanite. And with a fearsome face, while serving the king of Canaan, he took it to his head to go and serve the greatest king there was. He went to the king, who was reputed to be the greatest, but one day he saw the king cross himself at the mention of the devil. On thus learning that the king feared the devil, he departed to look for the devil. He came across a band of marauders, one of whom declared himself to be the devil, so Christopher decided to serve him. When he saw his new master avoid a wayside cross, he found out that the devil feared Christ. He left him and inquired from people where to find Christ. He met a hermit who instructed him in the Christian faith. Uh, so he ended up helping people cross a dangerous river,
Hmm.
and that's the legend. Like he ended up, the king ended up ordering him to be killed. Various attempts failed, but finally Christopher was beheaded.
Wow. That's crazy.
Oh, here we go. Here's why. Here's why. Brought before the local king, he refused to sacrifice to the pagan gods. The king tried to win him by riches and by sending two beautiful women to tempt him. But he ended up converting them to Christianity. And that's why he was ordered to be killed. Okay, so why? Here's my question: why would they say?
It didn't go the way of the king. That's why.
Yeah, well, no, not just that. Being for encounters with divinities who take. Okay. So I misread this. So this is E332.3.3.2, which is the next chapter, basically, the next motif. Is being
Okay.
for encounters with divinities who take to the road as hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Yes, that is why. Okay, cool. Well, hey, you know what? Welcome to research. You work through it as you go, I guess. And so, yeah, it's a super complicated thing. I mean, it can be very complicated, but then at the same time, when you really dig into it, they're pretty well delineated, right? Like it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to follow how things work. And then our next thing that we're going to go into is the legendary accounts, like the ones that people think of when they think of a vanishing hitchhiker. Are you
Hmm.
ready?
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. All right, so getting into the legends here. So the first legend we're going to go over, there's not a whole lot of information just because of the age. It's from 1602. It's the Joan Petrie Clint report. And that goes that a priest and two farmers were returning from the Candlemas market in Sweden, and a maid asked to join them. They rode with her to an inn. They stopped for a drink. The first beer was malt. The mug itself was filled with malt. Then it was acorns. And then it was blood. The maid predicted a good harvest, but also war and pestilence, and then vanished.
Wow. Even in the 1600s, we were seeing the vanish motif with a prophecy included.
Exactly. Multiple witnesses, supernatural traveler, an ominous message, classic hallmarks of a vanishing hitchhiker.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it just gets more interesting as time goes on. So the next legend we're going to look into is the Lady of White Rock Lake out of Dallas, Texas. Now, White Rock Lake is in northeast Dallas, Texas, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the earliest. Uh, Sorry, forgive me for a second. There it is. I'm gonna edit this part out.
Go ahead.
So, here we go.
Because I didn't know if you wanted to stop per legend too.
Yeah, we probably could. The next legend we're going to cover is the Lady of White Rock Lake in Dallas, Texas. So, in 1953, a young couple drives to the lake one July night and sees a figure in a wet white dress approaching. She asks for a ride home and gives an address.
Well, that sounds innocent enough, but in this case, until.
Exactly. When they arrive, she's gone. Only a wet seat remains. Weeks before, the daughter of the house had drowned. Some versions even include teens at the lake nearly being dragged underwater. Some experiencers report the girl sobbing in the back seat all the way to the location. Others report complete silence. Now, it's worth noting that some of the details, especially about Louise Davis, Rose Stone, Hallie Enid Gaston, are not fully verified. Some sources say that you have multiple, possibly, of these vanishing hitchhikers kind of operating the same place, right? So
Right.
some sources say that Louise Davis drowned herself in White Rock Lake in 1935. The same
Okay.
thing with Rose Stone in 1942. Now, another one that has been attributed to this is also the tragic drowning of Hallie Enid Gaston in 1927. Now, other certain details about some of this legend remain unclear. It's worth noting that nothing is really set in stone, and there's no real identity to who the Lady of White Rock Lake is,
Hmm.
right? So while the legend aligns with these events, the exact historical record remains uncertain.
Okay. So part of the mystery is real history, and part of it comes from the stories people tell.
Exactly. Folklore blends fact and imagination. It's what keeps it alive. The last legend we're going to get into is probably one of the most famous legends in the U.S. for vanishing hitchhikers. It is Resurrection Mary, which you heard a little bit about in the cold open tonight. Now, this is in Chicago, Illinois. The legend goes that Mary danced at the O. Henry Ballroom, and after an argument with her boyfriend, she walked down Archer Avenue, and she was struck by a hit and run driver, killed, and buried at Resurrection Cemetery. And she continues appearing in nightclubs and along roads.
So people have been seeing her long after her death.
Yes, a young man danced with her, offered a ride, and she vanished at the cemetery gates. Damage to the cemetery gates has been attributed to her. Now, there's also been, uh, in 1939, a Chicago Southsider reported that he met a woman whom he came to believe was Resurrection Mary at the Liberty Grove Hall. They danced and even kissed, and she asked him to drive her home along Archer Avenue, exiting the car and disappearing in front of Resurrection Cemetery. And in 1973, Resurrection
That's
Mary was said to have shown up at Harlow's nightclub on Cicero Avenue on Chicago's southwest side. And that same year, a cab driver came into Chet's Melody Lounge across the street from Resurrection Cemetery to inquire about a young lady who had left without paying her fare. Yeah. And so, that's just two instances so far.
Yeah. Sorry, dude, you're not getting paid.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Question: do they have credit reports in the afterlife? I don't know. So, but there's also been
Church
sightings.
and everything else that we can acquire.
Yeah, right. But, so there's also been sightings in 1976, 1978, 1980, and 1989. Would you like to know what those sightings took place with?
Of course.
Reportedly, they involved cars striking or nearly striking Mary outside of Resurrection Cemetery.
So other than being picked up, she's been almost like reliving the hit and run.
She's also been hit. People hearing
God.
the thud, right?
Yeah.
And by the time they get out of the car to check on the girl that they just hit, she's gone.
That's scary. That's creepy, though.
Reportedly, she also burned her handprints into the wrought iron fence around the cemetery in August 1976.
Whoa.
However, the official statement from the cemetery is that a truck damaged the fence. Now, looking at this picture, I am going to send this to you real quick. That way you can give an idea on what you think to our listeners. I personally don't think that this is a truck damage. What do you think?
No. No way.
I don't know of any truck. So for everybody that can't see this, basically you have wrought iron fencing, and it is discolored from heat,
And it's
and you
got
can
dimpling as if it was fingerprints. Like finger
exactly
dimples.
exactly now
Oh.
these gates have been replaced. They're no longer there,
Yeah.
right? And so there are a lot of stories when it comes down to Resurrection Mary. Like there are so many that it's hard to even really talk about all of them. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm driving down the road and I think that I hit somebody and they're gone, I'm losing it. I don't know
Yeah.
about you. But like that's
I,
game over for me. I'm going home and I'm never driving again.
yeah, because that's just terrifying in general. And then having to deal with, you think, I mean, just hitting anything in general is scary, but like hitting a grown person and you're paying attention to the road, it's one of those things like, wait, what? Like your body and your head and your mind, like, I don't think you would be able to come out of that shock.
Right.
It would
I
take
don't
a minute. And then once you come out and you start looking, there's no damage to your car and there's nobody there.
but
I
yet
would be
you
standing there dumbfounded, you
but
know?
yet you heard the thud.
Yeah,
And that is an unmistakable thud that you hear.
very much so.
Much like when you hear somebody fall over at the house. Like you hear them hit the floor. It is
Yeah, you hear a loud
unmistakable.
thud.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a totally I don't know if you've ever hit a deer. You
No,
know
thank
that
God.
sound. Like I know that sound because I hit a deer going 65 miles an hour.
Ew.
Yeah. But it is an unmistakable sound, and so the fact that people are hearing that, it really makes me wonder, what is this, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to have some kind of solidity and some mass to it, right? And so when you
Right.
start digging into the science side of it, right? Like how does that happen? Is it just something that your brain is doing that it's like, oh well, you thought you saw something, so it's kind of like a pareidolia where it's trying to make sense of it so it knows that it should hear that sound, right?
Right.
Or is it something that's actually there that's no longer there?
Well, since you're in a vehicle and you're driving through that same area and she's reliving it, it's almost
Mm-hmm.
one of those situations to where I would say, trying to think of the best way to word it, that you become part of that reliving because
Right.
you're that said car that would have hit. So technically, the time and placement, if she was reliving her death, like a say a vicious loop or something around that,
Mm-hmm.
it would just have to be that exact time and day, or like the time of day and that exact timing when that car is in the right spot to when she actually was hit, then yeah, the sound would reverberate from that event to you. So I think that's one thing of that a lot of people are picking up on is that maybe reoccurring nightmare for her.
It could be, and yeah, you run into a lot of. So here's the
Like a
question too.
reverberation in time and space.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically a residual haunting, right? It's kind of what you're saying
Yes.
because you have
Yeah,
like
100%.
residual
Thank
and
you.
you have
I couldn't think
you
of the
have
word.
yeah. I had trouble too. I get it. But the other question comes in too is, isn't it also intelligent?
For residual haunting, it's just
Well,
it's a
no.
mark or a scar that's been placed in that
I'm
place.
I'm specifically talking about Resurrection Mary.
Oh, her?
So
I would say
yeah.
so.
Well, but the thing is though, is because we're talking about the same thing, and there are instances where it seems to be residual, but then there's also instances where it seems to be intelligent, right?
Right.
So that is a very interesting thing that I think that we should dive into one day, maybe on another episode or even on our live stream, because it's kind of a combination of those two ideas. And so at the end of the
Right.
day, what is it that you think you're dealing with there? Are you dealing with a residual haunting, or are you dealing with an intelligent? Or does it just entirely depend on the day, the time, and the location? Because
It's a
she has been
possibility.
seen all over the place on the south end of Chicago.
But it's all from from what you've said, it's all rotating around that Resurrection Cemetery.
Exactly. And it's like, so is she in Resurrection Cemetery? And do you think that we can figure out who she is? Do you think we know who she is yet?
Honestly, I haven't seen anything on it. All I've ever heard of is Mary.
So there are some theories on who she is.
Mm-hmm.
However, nothing is really been set in stone, right?
Right.
And so you have the idea that it's one of the people that this has been attributed to has been Mary Bergovie, who died in 1934. However,
Okay.
she died in an automobile accident in the downtown Chicago Loop, not on Archer Avenue.
Right.
However, there was a Chicago author, Ursula Bielski, who documented a possible connection to someone named Anna Maria Norcus, who died in 1927 in an auto accident while on her way home from the O. Henry Ballroom.
Oh.
Now, again, we don't know who she is, right? No definitive evidence has confirmed her true identity. These are all just theories, not facts. However, I think it's very interesting that the Anna Maria Norcus, who died in 1927, was on her way home from the O. Henry Ballroom. Now,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
don't.
everything lines up. I mean, it's crazy. The experts, like the detectives and everything else, they don't fully know who she is.
Here's my question, though. Here we go. Let's see where she's buried at, though.
That is a good question.
Mm-hmm. She was born 1914 to 1927, so she was 12 years old when she died. And she is buried at St. Casimir Catholic Cemetery, which is not the same as Resurrection Cemetery. And the other one was Mary Bergovie, 1912 to 1934. And she is buried at Resurrection Catholic Cemetery.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. So
Interesting.
now the question comes in because Mary Bergovie died on the Chicago Loop, while
Right.
Anna Maria Norcus died on her way home from the O. Henry Ballroom, which is just down the road.
I forgot how big this cemetery was.
Yeah, it's massive when you really look at it. It is absolutely massive. And now, the thing is, I don't know. Yeah, there's over 1,000 open photo requests, probably all for her gravesite on Find a Grave.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, South Archer Avenue. Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting thought, right? When you really dig into this. So even experts don't fully know who she was. They don't know why they're here. Right? However, when it comes down to the Vanishing Hitchhiker stories that we've shared,
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding out that the mystery is part of why the story persists. The mystery of who they are and what happened to them, right? Because everybody wants to figure it out.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, that's why they're still here. So, throughout this episode, we've shared a mix of historical research, reported experiences, and folklore. Some details, especially around personal identities and exact events, remain unverified. We want to be transparent about that while exploring the legends and what they mean culturally. Now, at the end of this episode, what we want to do is we want to kind of just have an open discussion between Jesse and myself on what we think about the Vanishing Hitchhiker and how the stories make us feel, and just kind of have some final thoughts to put out there. So, Jesse, I'm going to let you go first. Just kind of give me your thoughts.
When it comes down to the Vanishing Hitchhiker, like I said, a lot of the stories are different, and which is very fascinating, based upon the events people have dealt with. And like you said, it could just be a normal person trying to get a ride home to a situation of divine right, where someone has basically been treated as if they had a guardian angel saving them or anything around that, which is very fascinating. Um, but yeah, it's pretty impressive, I want to say, because of how so much legend, so and like legend folklore, how it all ties into at least something similar, which is one thing that keeps everything grouped together. um but it's honestly, it's really fascinating. I have to say that 100% because it is, because you never know what situation you're going to deal with when it comes to said vanishing hitchhiker.
Exactly. And and you brought something up. You said that they're so different, right? But yet,
Hmm.
there's so much of it that's the same across
Yeah.
history and across cultures and time. And it's both the same and different.
Yes.
Each story has their own slight variations, each story has their own life to them, right?
Yes.
However, it kind of follows just the same general makeup, right? The same general flow to the stories, right? You meet someone, they ask you for a ride home, you give them that ride home, and then they're gone. They didn't say much on
Right.
the ride, they didn't really do anything. You never even stopped the car, and they're gone. And the only thing left is a wet seat. Or maybe your jacket's missing now. Or maybe there's a handbag in the back seat that wasn't there before. But
Right.
yet, even with all of these things, there's so many things that are unverified that people try to put out there and say, oh, yeah, well, this is like kind of like with Resurrection Mary. Oh, it has to be Mary Bergovi, or it has to be Anna Maria Norcus, right?
Hmm.
While at the end of the day, I don't know that it much matters sometimes with these stories. Sometimes, especially after doing this research and reading so much, I don't think it's about the hitchhiker at all. I think it's about the one giving them the ride, showing them that there's something more out there or something more after life. Now, some of these stories are them trying to reach out for help. Those are a little bit different, right? Kind of like the
Yes.
idea with the lady of White Rock Lake, where she's like, I just want to go home, and she's sobbing in the back seat the whole ride home.
Right.
But yet, with Resurrection Mary, especially, I think a lot of that is just, hey, I'm still here. Not so
Yeah.
much, Not so much of just, hey, I'm going to scare you. It's don't
No,
forget.
it's yeah, don't forget me.
Right. And I think that's something that we run into a lot in a lot of ghost stories is, I mean, unless you go with the Hollywood end of it, where it's, spooky, scary, and, jump scares and this, that, and the other, right?
Hmm.
But when you really dig into it at the end of the day, I think a lot of these stories are just reminders that the past was real. Not to
Yes.
quote Papa Roach here, but, you know, I mean, but the
Facts.
past existed. It had
Yes.
consequences that we are dealing with today. Everything that happened before us really did happen. It's no longer just a story. It's something that we need to look into and we need to learn from and learn about.
I can see that.
And I think that's something that a lot of these stories, especially, really do well. Is they really give people a reason to dive into history.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I think doing these kind of podcasts is important because we can share both the story and the history. We can share the information, get it out there, and maybe we can figure out who Mary was or whether
Yeah.
the Lady of White Rock Lake is one woman or multiple.
That's a good point because it could be multiple.
It very well
Because
could be.
you've got the one that's, I mean, something could have happened to the Mary that was coming from the ballroom to, there could have been a car accident to, one was a hit and run, or the other, I mean, the story is, it's one of those things that's always unknown territory when it comes down to it.
Exactly. And you kind of have even a similar thing between the Resurrection Mary legend and the Lady of White Rock Lake because there's a possibility that there's multiple, right?
Yes.
You look at the Lady of White Rock Lake specifically, right? You have um, Louise Davis, you have Rose Stone, and you have Hallie Enid Gaston, right?
Yes.
And they all passed by drowning in that lake, right? But
Yes.
then you also have, Mary Bergovi and Anna Maria Norcus, who very possibly could have both went to the O. Henry Ballroom, right? And could
That
have
is
spent a
true.
lot of time there. Now, it gets really interesting when you really dive into those because then it's is it an energy that you're experiencing or is it the person, right?
That's very true.
And it's kind of like when we were talking about people hearing the thud when they would hit someone while driving down Archer Avenue. I'm still curious as to what can cause that, right? Like I know that there are spirits and entities that can manifest in an actual mass, right? To create, a full figure or to move things or to sit in your chair or whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
right? Or to make knocking sounds, rapping sounds, throwing items. However, hitting something with your car and physically hearing and feeling the thud goes a little bit farther than that to me.
Agreed.
And I think what would be really interesting is if we were to go up there and drive up and down Archer Avenue for a night. I
You
don't
want to
know if
experience hitting Mary?
I want to experience Mary. I
Hmm.
want to go up there. I want to see for myself what this is, right?
I
Now,
mean,
I
it is true.
may,
It's the one thing you never know until you find out.
I, my hope is not to hit Mary, right?
Huh.
However,
Correct.
I'd be okay giving her a ride.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And you really got to break it down. And the only way that you can do it is to go up there and investigate these things and to really look at them, right?
100%.
Now, sadly, the O. Henry Ballroom is no more. The O. Henry Ballroom does not exist anymore.
Correct.
I believe it burned down, is what happened to it. So you
Yeah.
can't go there anymore. But I think I think it's called the Willowbrook Ballroom, which is across the street now, which is basically the same thing, just across the way, and it's owned by different people. Um,
Okay.
but during my reading, one thing that I thought was interesting is they used to leave a drink out for Mary at the O. Henry Ballroom.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they used to. No one knew who she was, but there was a story that I read where they used to leave a Bloody Mary, a Virgin Bloody Mary,
Yeah.
on the counter for her, just as a nod. And I thought that was really cool.
That's very cool.
It is. And I think that just shows how important local folklore and local legends are to everyone in the community.
I agree,
Like,
100%.
whether it brings you business, whether it just brings people together by talking about an experience they had, or even if you go to the skeptical side, if two skeptics talk about this and they're like, oh yeah, it's all hooey, like, that's still bringing people together. And that's one of my favorite things about talking about these stories is it brings people together whether you believe in it or not.
Yeah.
So maybe, and this is going to sound cheesy, but maybe the real thing about the Vanishing Hitchhiker is creating that unity.
Agreed.
Maybe. Just maybe.
That's still so fascinating, though.
It really, really is. And the minor variations, it keeps it interesting for everybody involved.
Agreed.
And it really helps it survive longer.
Yes.
Will we ever really know who Mary or the Lady of White Rock Lake is? Maybe that's why they're still here. Unfinished business.
Or maybe the mystery is why we keep telling these stories.
But no matter what, thank you so much for joining us on the inaugural episode of They're Still Here. Be sure to follow, review, and share the show, and send us your stories to be featured on the Paranormal Soapbox. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Twitch, and YouTube, and join our Discord, which you can find all of those links in the link tree in the show notes. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode. You guys stay safe, stay curious, and we will see you soon.
My name is Jesse. Thank you for tuning in to They're Still Here. Be sure to follow us on all our social media and join our Discord. Check our link tree for all of our links. Our theme is SCP X7X, 6th Floor by Kevin MacLeod, and Compotech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Stay curious, stay safe. We will see you soon.